Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network. And we are back with our licensed clinical social worker and friend, Stacey Hellman, and so much more. Welcome to the show today. How are you?
Thanks. I'm great. How are you?
I'm doing well, thank you. Would you mind introducing yourself to our listeners and viewers today, please?
Sure, of course. So my name is Stacey Hellman. I'm a psychotherapist, licensed clinical social worker, and I have a private practice in Ellicott City, Maryland. So I do individual therapy with adults.
Perfect. And your best forms of contact? Do you have a website or anywhere we
Sure.
can get in touch with you?
Sure. It's staceyhellman.com. So STACEYHELLMAN.com. And there's my email address and phone number on there. And there's a contact form. So you can just go on the site and click on the contact form.
Great. So what did you have in store for us today? I know there's a lot to you, to your company. Where did you want to begin?
So I'll just explain a little bit about the population I work with, the kinds of issues that people come to see me for, to work on. And then I'll talk a little bit more about my method, which I think is a little bit non-traditional. So this is probably my favorite thing to talk about.
Well, you call yourself, you're an integrative psychotherapist, correct?
Yes.
Perfect.
And maybe that's a good place to start. So
Sure.
What does that mean, right? So integrative means using a more holistic approach when we talk about therapy. It's not just cognitive with your thoughts. It's not just your emotions, but there's the body as well. So that's really interesting to me, more body-centered types of therapies. So it's an integrative where it's body and mind and your emotions and spirit, if that's part of your thought process as well.
Got it. All right. StaceyHellman.com. Just to point that out, it's STACEYHELLMAN.com.
Right.
Healing, you say, from within. All right.
Yeah. That's my business card, right?
Yes. Great. So let's continue on the types of things that you're working on with people and how you can help our listeners today.
Yeah, so most of the clients I see are pretty high functioning, professionals, doctors, lawyers, business owners, and on the surface, it looks like they have it all together, right? They've got their families and they're doing well financially, but emotionally, not so much. And behaviorally, when we get right down to why they're coming into therapy, they struggle with things like anxiety or depression, but they don't necessarily have to have a diagnosis, to benefit from therapy. A lot of people struggle with things like people-pleasing behaviors or setting appropriate boundaries in their relationships, things like that. And it's more subtle, but it still causes problems for people, enough so that they want to go talk to somebody about it. So I just want to be clear that you don't have to have a diagnosis to benefit from therapy. You don't have to have let's say a full-blown alcohol problem to say, maybe I need to go and work on some things. So that's kind of my population that I work with.
Now, do you also work with couples or is it just individuals? I mean,
for now, it's just individuals.
Okay.
I need to get some more training to work with couples down the road. Occasionally I'll do a session with a partner when it's needed or when it looks like it would be useful, but primarily I just do individual therapy.
Got it. All right. Good to know. Now, as far as, let me ask you about the pandemic, how that's affected so many of us, the anxiety, the angst, the depression, the stress. How have you seen that affect your clients? Are you dealing a lot with that now?
Sure.
On top of things?
Yeah. I mean, I think anytime there's a high stress situation, our coping strategies may not be working so well that we could rely on before, especially because there's a lot of disconnection with our normal social groups and social activities. So I am seeing people in person, by the way, with some safety precautions, but I also see people virtually. But certainly I think people are struggling more because there is a huge problem in the world and it's very stressful and we can't escape it. Everyone's being affected. So we need mental health more than ever.
Yeah, I mean, loss of job, loss of life, loss of finances, loss of trying to reinvent the wheel with a new job, trying to homeschool, and now it's all happening again. We're in New York. How is it where you are, by the way, right now? Mask mandates and COVID and vaccine policies. How are they where you are?
Well, right now the schools, I'm in Howard County. I have a daughter, she's 6, and her school is trying very hard to stay in person the whole year. So, I think the numbers are not good. Unfortunately, the numbers are going up. Not enough people are getting vaccinated. Not enough people are getting their kids vaccinated quick enough. So it's not great, but I don't know. Howard County, they're trying to keep schools, open as much as possible.
Yeah.
I do think therapy works better in person, I will say. I do have some safety precautions in place, so I don't want people to be scared of that. I do require full vaccination for people coming in person in my office. I have a safety, like what's it called? A plexiglass partition on the table between us. We are 6 feet apart. And then I have an air filter. So those are and I can sanitize. I have like a UV light that I use to sanitize in between sessions.
Wow.
So just want to put that out there. I do think in-person therapy is way more effective because people don't have the privacy in their own house necessarily anymore to be able to speak freely.
Great point. I never thought about it that way. You're right.
Yeah,
everyone's hunkered down in the bedroom, in the corner, in a makeshift office on the floor. Yeah, the kids are there. Yes, good point.
Right.
I have a 6 and 4-year-old as well. I know.
Yeah, I know. It's impossible, to get into privacy. Or I have people calling me from their parked cars.
Yeah.
Which is not ideal. And then I think also just getting out of the house and being in another person's space is very different than sitting in front of a screen and talking to somebody. I think with the pandemic, we've missed a lot of that face-to-face contact, like eye contact. It really changes the dynamic in the therapy session. And this idea of like social distancing, I think, yes, for safety reasons, it's been necessary, but on an emotional level, it's really created a lot of isolation, I think, for people.
Now, do you want to, if you don't mind, dive into a little more about your philosophy and your mindset and how you help and work with your clients, which could be different from another psychotherapist?
Sure. So let me give you a metaphor of how I see therapy. When my client walks in through the door, imagine they have a big jigsaw puzzle, a big box with lots of pieces in it, right? But the problem is there's no top to the box. So we don't know what the picture looks like. So all they know is they have a jumble of things going on in their life. Things aren't working so well, but they don't really know why. They don't really have the narrative to go with that jumble. So part of my job is to help them kind of decode what's going on, play detective a little bit, give them a little bit of psychoeducation, which can go a long way, so that they can look back on their history and see a picture that they didn't see before. That's step one.
Okay.
Right? They need to have some insights. I help them connect the dots. It's all childhood stuff, but it's hard to see sometimes because people have an idea that because it happened so long ago, it can't possibly still be affecting them.
Yeah.
So step one is to really understand what's going on here. So just putting the pieces together takes a long time, first of all, and then they need to feel safe with me. I'm a stranger. I can't expect them to just being out there, you're telling secrets, you're telling things that you might not be so proud
people to. Yeah, no.
Yes, like all that takes time. But once we get the picture of on the top of the jigsaw puzzle, then we have to figure out what to do to repair some of this stuff. And that is where I think there's some lack in other types of therapy, the repair, and the doing. So a big piece of my role is just to be a compassionate presence and a really non-judgmental presence, which a lot of people have never had, honestly, before. Unfortunately, a lot of parent relationships are conditional. They're not unconditional. It doesn't feel a lot of, there's some warm fuzzy that's been missing with parent relationships. So like in some ways I'm reparenting. I'm doing the reparenting as part of the role.
Got it.
Yeah.
And just curious, what are the ages of the clients? Do you work with adolescents or just adults?
I used to work with adolescents. It's been adults and 18 and up for a long time. I used to work with adolescents, which was great, but it was also a lot more challenging because I also had to work with the parents. I'm a parent now, and I just I just want to see adults. That's
Got
what,
it. All
yeah.
right, good. So what
Yeah.
are some other things you're dealing with your clients, if you don't mind bringing up some examples in a sense of how some of our listeners can maybe relate to some of the types of people you're helping and what are the things that they're working on with you?
Sure. And I'll just dovetail back also to the doing part of how to repair.
Sure.
So let's say I'm just going to call her Amy. I'm going to change all the details here. Amy was in her mid-20s. She was Korean, and she grew up in a neighborhood and a school where everybody, almost everybody, was white. So she, from the start, really did not feel like she fit in. That was number one. She also did not feel understood in her family. Her parents were from Korea. They didn't quite understand, her generation and the culture that she was now immersed in. And so they didn't understand that when she started having school problems, that there was actually like a learning disability going on, and it went undiagnosed until early college. So she really needed some meds for ADHD that she never got, and she struggled in school a lot. And her parents came down very hard on her. They would yell at her, call her stupid. They just didn't understand why she was struggling. They thought she was just being lazy or that kind of thing. So she really didn't feel understood by her parents or accepted by her parents either.
Mm-hmm.
So she doesn't have a solid friend group, and she doesn't feel like she belongs in her family. That's the foundation we're talking about. And then, fast forward to her teenage years, she started restricting her food intake. And in her mind, if I'm thinner, I'm going to fit in more, and I'm going to feel like I belong. And it wasn't so conscious, but that was some underpinnings there. And the more I worked with her, the more that came out, that what she really wanted was a feeling of belonging. It wasn't really that she wanted a thin body. She just thought that one equaled the other.
Got
So
it.
that was kind of driving her, the beginnings of an eating disorder. And then she also started drinking later on in college, because that's what you do in college, right? But it got out of control because she was losing sleep, trying to, get perfect grades, and was still really struggling. And, the alcohol was helping her sleep. And then she got into this vicious cycle. And really what was driving all that was this wanting to achieve and feeling a lot of pressure to achieve. And, in working with her, she started to see that underneath all of these behaviors, it's, they're just coping strategies for where she was trying to do some of this repair for this, these emotional wounds that had happened long ago. So helping her realize, okay, what I really need in the present is an experience of belonging. And what I need is to be less judgmental of myself as far as my grades, and to know that my self-worth is not directly tied in with my achievement. With her parents, that's what it was. It was her self-worth tied in with her achievement equals success equals survival, essentially. I guess, in Korea, her parents' experience was that if you don't get a good education, you're not going to be successful in your career, and you're going to fail life. That's kind of the bottom line. So they were really coming from these different cultural points of view, and it ended up snowballing. And, I'm happy to say that she's doing great right now. She's no longer using food as a way to try to fit in. In fact, it's the opposite. She's eating lunch with friends. She's reaching out when she feels like restricting, to kind of really get to the root of what she wants to experience. And she's been sober for almost a year, and she's doing really, really wonderfully. Really wonderfully. That's a long answer to your question.
No, but that's great. Just some of our listeners could relate to some of this, the types of things they could go to a psychotherapist for, especially one that believes in more integrative practices, and, how you can help, because it's always good to hear. A lot of times there's also life coaches out there, and it's different. Life coach is not trained in what you do, but some life coaches. So I just want to make sure we know exactly what you do and how you can help people.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. I'm glad you brought that up. So life coaches, my understanding anyway, I'm not an expert, but my life coach is when they're focused on specific goals, for now and moving forward, maybe what's getting in your way, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
But it's not so much focused on your childhood experiences and how it's still playing out. I think that's the difference. So here are the methods. Maybe I can give a little bit more information about the integrative part. So once you have the insight about why you're doing what you're doing, then there's the repair. And I use some non-traditional methods that involve trance work, and that term is kind of an umbrella term that means anything that's going to create an altered state of consciousness in a natural way. So for example, hypnosis or hypnotherapy, that's an example of trance work. Guided imagery, guided meditation, all of these things change brain waves, right? So it changes how the brain is processing what's happening in the session when you're in a slightly altered state. So that's what trance work is. And I use that a lot, not with every client and not with every issue, and certainly not in every session, but I find it really effective in bypassing a lot of the logical thinking, or people who tend to intellectualize and stay up in their head, people who tend to have a hard time getting in touch with their emotions. For example, trance work's really good for that. So I use it when it works for certain clients, for sure. And, I'll give you a visual here.
Sure.
Some people lie down on my couch, some people sit, I dim the lights, I put on some soothing music, they close their eyes if they feel comfortable. And it's very different from, the kind of conversation, that you would think about, oh, I go to my therapist and I talk about this and he or she gives me feedback or whatever. It's a totally different experience for the client to have, and they have to be ready for it. We don't start with that on day 1, 2, or 3. They have to kind of feel comfortable enough and trust me enough to go to these places where more emotion can come up.
And speaking of, how long does it take to transform, to change a behavioral pattern normally, how long do you work with someone? I'm sure it's different for in each case, but can you give me an idea of the type of commitment that's involved with helping yourself in this sense?
Sure. I mean, it really does depend on how long a behavior's been going on. So someone who's been doing people pleasing for 30 years might have a harder time changing than, someone who's been doing that for 10 years. But I would say overall, I tend to work with people long term. I would say most of the clients I'm working with right now, I've been seeing for 1 to 3 years. Some people stay about 6 months. I would say minimum, but it really just depends. It just depends on how committed they are to kind of the process. So what they do in between sessions will really speed things up. I will say that. If you only come see me 1 hour a week, and then the rest of the time during your week, you don't even think about what we did in the session, or you don't do any journaling or anything like that, it's slower.
Got it.
Kind of get out of it what you put into it.
Got it. All right. Good to know. Also on the website, just to point out again, it's STACEYHELLMAN. Are you on social media at all, or no?
You know what? Strangely, I'm not. I know that's kind of rare these days, but I just tend to spend my time with clients, and I don't even have a Twitter account. I don't have an Instagram.
That's okay.
Maybe it's a generational thing. I don't know.
That's okay. Now, normally, if someone is interested in your services, is there an initial conversation, a consultation that you offer ahead of time? How does that work?
Yeah. So I offer a 30-minute free consultation. So that could be virtually or in person, whatever's better for them. I like to do it, if it's virtual, I like to do it telehealth, not just a phone call. I like to see each other, get a feel for each other, see if it's a good fit. It's a chance for them to ask me any questions. And, I try to find out why they're coming to therapy and if they've had therapy before. And then we just kind of go from there. But I do offer that because I know it's a commitment. It's a financial commitment. It's a time commitment, and you have to have the right person for sure.
Now, can I ask a little about you? What brought you into this field? Tell us about yourself. Where did you grow up, and what made you, go into this field, and what you love most about it?
So that's a lot.
We have 7 minutes, 8 minutes. But yeah, we need to know you, right? Because people want to feel comfortable with you when they come to you. So it's good to get a little bit of your background.
Yeah, so I've actually always been interested in psychology, and it's very odd. When I was like 8 years old, I was at a camp, and there was a friend of mine who lost her pair of earrings, and I said, "I can help you," and I really don't know where this came from, but I sat her down and I had her close her eyes, and I did this little guided imagery with her, and she found her earrings. Like she just, I don't know. I put her in a trance state, and she found her earrings in her pocket. They've been there all along.
Wow.
I really can't explain to you why that happened or where that came from. But what I've learned since then is that I'm really good at putting people in trances. You know, my voice tends to put people to sleep, so I have to work on my public speaking skills, right? But
Hmm.
honestly, I knew when I was like 11 that I wanted to go be a therapist, and I just did it. I don't know. I feel very blessed in that way. I just knew what I wanted to do, and it didn't change that knowing. So I got a bachelor's in psychology, I got a master's in social work. And then
Great.
after that, I sought out some more, non-traditional um, types of trainings for trauma, especially. I will mention that I'm trauma certified. But I personally, I've been drawn to like more intense experiences with personal growth, more on the spiritual side. So
Hmm.
breath work, I've done some like sweat lodges, Native American sweat lodges back before I had a child and I actually had time to do things. I would seek out kind of personal growth workshops and things like that because I just find it exciting. I find it exciting to grow, and I really love helping other people grow.
Oh, beautiful stories. That was quick. You did it in less than 2 minutes.
Oh yeah.
And so clearly, what's most rewarding is the fact you're helping people. And did you ever go through anything in your life, in your experience, where you needed the guidance of someone like yourself? If you don't mind sharing,
Sure, absolutely. I mean, I really think we all
I'll
need
have.
therapy. I've had therapists on and off in my life, starting in college. I'm not going to go into too much of a personal, background, but I've certainly been through a wide variety of experiences that a lot of people struggle with.
Good.
My childhood wasn't all that wonderful either.
Neither was mine.
Yeah, I think I know one person who had like a really awesome childhood. So most of us have stuff to work through.
Hmm.
And I've just found, that I'm a better therapist because of the things that I've been through.
You can
And
relate, you can empathize, you really
absolutely,
understand. And that's important,
absolutely.
I think. Yeah.
Yeah, I've been through my personal struggles as well, for sure. I will say I'm divorced and I'm a single mom, so that in and of itself is a huge journey.
Yeah.
I think I'm a better therapist because of being a parent.
Hmm.
I will say that for sure. But I'm human just like everybody else.
Got it.
We all got our stuff, right?
Great. Well, did you want to give us any advice, any tips? I mean, look, the holiday season's here. It's in a few days, right? We got Christmas, we got New Year's, we're a lot of anxiety, a lot of stress with that.
I
Then
know.
along comes the family, and then it comes the any advice you can give, I mean, to us, and the new year's here. I mean, just in case you want to discuss anything about that and any mindset tips or how do we get through the day or anything that's you think is valuable to us that we can learn from you today would be great.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, oh my God, holiday spirit, right? Like everyone's supposed to be cheery and bright, but
It's the holiday season and it's like whoop doo doo and you're like "Ah." I had
right.
someone ask me today, so y'all ready for Christmas? And I'm like, ready? No, I'm like, I haven't wrapped my gifts. I'm not even done getting my gifts. I'm like, I'm working 2 jobs. I got my kids. I'm single. I live alone. I'm like, no. I'm like,
Right.
I had a
I
panic
know.
attack.
And then you like think about going to the mall and you get run over by a stampede of people. Like it's stressful. So I guess, the quick advice would be do what you need to do to keep your sanity, during the holidays. And if you have family where there's drama, give yourself permission to like leave the room for a minute, go to the bathroom, take some deep breaths. You can set some boundaries and limit your exposure if you need to family. I will say that. Do whatever you can to take care of yourself. I'm a huge yoga advocate. I think it's been a huge tool for me with staying grounded and just trying to stay calm when it's stressful, you know. And there's just a lot going on these days. So you really have to take care of yourself. And the more you take care of yourself, then you really do have more to give, your kids, your friends, your family. So it's kind of,
Self-care. They say put that
yeah,
oxygen mask over yourself first, but
right.
how many of us really do that?
It's so hard when you have to juggle everything, being a parent and then just, even just basic stuff like getting to the dentist, you
Yeah.
know.
Yep.
There's a lot. So I think it's just having that mindset of, I need to take care of myself as best I can, whenever I can. I try to squeeze in the yoga class. Some weeks it doesn't happen. Some days I do get up at 5:45 and I do my 15 minutes of yoga, so you just kind of like try to be gentle with yourself about what you can accomplish and just do what you can. I mean, it's one day at a time. We're just trying to get through the day and try to find something to appreciate, about this, holiday time, even if it's not all cheery and bright, just to try to find some moments of gratitude, I would say.
Gratitude. That's
Yeah.
it. That's it. Should we be like journaling or writing these things down? Gratitude. Yes.
Sure. I mean, instead of, oh my God, I have to wrap these gifts, it could be, I'm so grateful that I had the money to buy these gifts
Yeah,
and the
exactly.
wrapping paper, and just kind of reframe things, because it's so easy to get caught up in the stress of it all. It really is. And oh my God, my mom, there she goes again with her complaining or whatever. And it's hard sometimes to kind of zoom out and see the big picture. We don't really know how much time we have with each other, unfortunately. I mean, look what happened with this pandemic. Not all of us have gotten through,
Yeah.
unfortunately. So just to appreciate the time that you have with the friends and the family that you have, that you can see this holiday.
Perfect. Oh, beautifully said. All right, Stacey, we still have 2 minutes left. What else did you want to share about you and your company, how you can help everyone?
Yeah. Well, I really encourage people, especially if you've never had therapy, to at least contact me for a free 30-minute consult. There's really nothing to lose. And you might be surprised, I'll ask you some questions. I'll get you talking. I'm pretty good at that. And, we'll go from there. But a lot of people think that you have to be crazy or have a really serious problem to go to therapy. And it's not true. I think, in fact, it's the opposite. The time to go to therapy is before things get really out of control. The time to go to therapy is when you're starting to feel that, hey, maybe things aren't working so well. It's really a sign of strength to reach out for help.
Yeah.
We need each other. We're social creatures. You don't have to do it all by yourself.
Yeah.
So, especially if you are a successful person who seems to have it all together, you might be putting a lot of pressure on yourself to try to figure out everything by yourself.
Yeah.
And it doesn't mean that, you're weak or that you're stupid or that you just can't function, without some extra help. So there's definitely still a stigma, I think, about going to therapy and getting mental health. I have plenty of clients that they don't tell their family that they're
Yeah.
seeing a therapist, because they know that there's judgment,
Mm-hmm.
what, you're seeing a shrink, you're crazy, those sorts of
I
reactions.
know. I get it.
And
Yeah.
yeah, so I just want to debunk some of that.
Good.
There's really nothing wrong with wanting to go talk to somebody and figuring out your life, because that just means you care about yourself.
Absolutely. Nothing's
That's
wrong with
something
that.
that-
And it's not being selfish. It's being
yeah.
selfless. Yep. And to remind us, Stacey, how we can reach out to you. Have a phone number, email, website.
Yeah, I'll give you my phone number. It's 410-206-8573. So
Perfect.
410-206-8573. You can call me. It's a confidential voicemail. Feel free to leave me a message and I will get back to you within 24 hours. That is my guarantee.
Great. Well, thank you so much for being here, for joining us. Happy holidays. Happy New Year. I don't know when we're going to speak again, but it's a pleasure having you here.
Yeah, I'll be here next week. I have
Oh,
one more,
good.
with the Q&A. So if
Oh,
anyone has
good.
questions, that's where I will be.
Perfect. Great to see you in person, and you have a great day. And to
Thanks.
all of our listeners, the same. Happy holidays. We'll be
Thank
right back after the break. Thank you.
you. Bye-bye.
Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
For nearly 2,000 severely injured veterans, everyday life has become filled with barriers.
Day-to-day simple tasks can become pretty daunting.
I have to carry my chair up 2 flights of steps or have somebody do it for me.
What scares me the most is just the falling.
When I'm struggling with my house, I think, to have that one great barrier just knocked down, I mean, it's crucial.
Home for Our Troops is a wonderful nonprofit that builds a
mortgage-free, fully adaptive, handicap-accessible house.
And there's no catch.
It'll be our very first home that we've ever owned. This is a game changer.
This is where your life begins again.
We need you to join us in completing this important mission. Please visit hfotusa.org and help build homes and rebuild lives.
Because of you, everything's going to be okay.